Hello, my name's Shanice. Imagine buying your very first brand new car, and your own sister takes a hammer to it out of jealousy, and when you turn to your mother for comfort, she looks you straight in the eye and says, "Serves you right for buying something fancy." That was the moment I realized. My family never wanted to see me win. They wanted to break me. But instead of crying, I said one sentence that left them frozen in silence. And before I tell you what it was, let me ask you, what time are you listening to this? And where are you right now? Drop it in the comments below. Because this story, you're not going to forget it. The first sound that broke the silence was my mom sipping her tea and muttering, "Well, if you can afford a car like that, surely a little signature isn't too much to ask." I didn't say anything at first. My hand was still on the strap of my purse, and for a second, I wasn't even sure if I had actually heard her correctly, or if my ears were just playing games after the whirlwind of emotions I'd gone through all morning. Kendra didn't miss a beat. She laid a manila folder on the dining table with a casual flick of her wrist, like she'd just dropped off a birthday card. "It's nothing big," she said, all sweet and light. "Just a small loan. Tiny. Barely a dent in your credit." I glanced down. The folder was open just enough to reveal the top of a document, pages stapled together, with her name and the bold heading, "Loan Cosigner Agreement." Tinsley giggled from behind her phone. "Auntie, you're loaded now. You should totally do it." I looked at her. She was chewing gum, holding her phone high to catch the angle of her lips in the soft kitchen light. It took me a moment to realize that I was the backdrop in her selfie. "Kendra," I said quietly, "you came here because you wanted me to co-sign a loan?" Her eyes widened, faux offense spreading across her face. "We came to celebrate, of course, but while we're all together—" "You didn't say anything about this when you called," I replied. My voice was even, too even. I didn't like how calm I sounded. It made me feel far away from myself. "I didn't want to make it weird," Kendra said, smiling like a pageant contestant. "But come on, Shanice. You have the credit. I don't. Mom can't. Tinsley needs stability, and I'm finally getting my business back on track." I turned to Mom. She hadn't looked at me once since I walked in. Just kept sipping her tea, slow and measured. Her silence was a cue, not a retreat. It meant she was letting Kendra speak, for now. I was already feeling the floor tilt beneath me. Just hours ago, I had been alone at the dealership, heart pounding as I signed for that cherry-red sedan. The salesman had shaken my hand with both of his. "You've earned this," he said. And for once, I believed it. I had driven home with the windows cracked, letting the Texas breeze kiss my face. It was mine. I'd saved for years, said no to vacations, kept the same old phone while Tinsley upgraded every 6 months. I hadn't asked for help. I hadn't expected praise. But this was something else. "It's not just a signature," I said finally. "It's my name, my financial record, my peace of mind." "Oh, please," Kendra scoffed. "You act like it's some grand sacrifice. It's just paperwork." "It's just my future," I shot back, sharper now. "Which apparently doesn't matter unless it benefits someone else." Mom put her cup down with a soft clink. "You always make things so dramatic, Shanice. Lord, we're a family. We help each other." I looked at her. "When has anyone helped me?" The words fell out of me before I could stop them. And the silence that followed was louder than any shouting could have been. Kendra laughed nervously. "Wow, that's how you see it? After everything?" "Yes," I said simply. "That's how I see it." They stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who picked up prescriptions and dropped off groceries and remembered everyone's birthdays. I was the one who showed up, and for that, I had earned the title of convenient. Mom sighed, annoyed. "Well, if you're going to throw the past in our faces—" "I'm not throwing anything," I interrupted. "But I'm not signing either." Kendra's smile faltered. Her eyes narrowed. You're really going to say no? After everything I've done for you? You mean the time you borrowed my car and returned it on E? Or when I loaned you money for your business and never heard back? That's low, she snapped. So is lying to get me here. The air shifted then. Heavier. Thicker. Mom stood up and walked to the sink, back turned. Fine, she said. If that's who you've become, then maybe it's better you enjoy that car alone. I let the silence stretch. I was done performing for them. I picked up my purse and looked at the folder again. It wasn't just about the loan. It was about the assumption that I was still the backup plan. I'm going, I said, turning toward the door. And you know what? You're right. That car out there is fancy, but so is something none of you seem to understand. What's that? Kendra asked, arms crossed. Boundaries. And then I walked out, leaving the folder on the table, unopened. That sentence rang in my head like a fire alarm in a locked building. And for the first time, I didn't want to be the one holding the key. The next morning, I pulled into Mom's driveway, the fruit salad riding shotgun beside a bottle of store-bought wine I didn't even like. The sun was already high, throwing light on her neatly trimmed hedges and the hummingbird feeder that hadn't seen a single bird since 2019. I had slept like a stone, not because I was at peace, but because my brain had given up on sorting through the mess. They wanted brunch today. A reset, as Kendra had called it in a group text that read more like a command. I rang the bell, even though I had a key. I wasn't in the mood to pretend like I still belonged there. Mom answered in one of her old floral robes, the one with the fading blue roses. Her eyes flicked to the wine bottle in my hand, and then to my face. Bringing peace offerings? She asked, voice flat. Fruit salad too, I said, lifting the Tupperware. Guess that makes it a full meal. She stepped aside without a word. Inside, the house smelled like bacon and buttered toast. Comforting smells, except I knew better than to get comfortable. Kendra was already at the table, loud and breezy, wearing a sundress too tight for a Sunday morning and pouring orange juice like it was mimosas on a yacht. Tinsley sat with her legs tucked under her, scrolling her phone, chewing gum like her jaw had a grudge. Look who showed up, Kendra said, too bright. I was beginning to think you'd ghosted us. I brought fruit, I replied, placing the bowl on the table. Tinsley didn't look up. Does it have strawberries? I don't eat melon. It bloats me. I almost laughed. Almost. We made small talk, or rather, they talked, and I nodded in between chewing. Mom made a joke about how red cars get pulled over more often. Kendra added that flashy things usually meant someone was overcompensating. I said nothing. I'd learned to serve peace like a dish at potlucks, cold, quiet, and usually unappreciated. Then it started. So, Kendra said, her tone shifting just enough for my stomach to tighten. About that loan, I'm not co-signing, I said calmly, dabbing at the corner of my mouth with a napkin. I've thought it through. Kendra blinked, as if shocked that I'd taken initiative. Shanice, come on. We talked about this. No, you talked. I listened. Mom's fork scraped against her plate. Why make a scene? It's a signature. It's a risk, I said, turning to her. With my name on it. Kendra's smile thinned. It's not even for me, she snapped, like she'd been holding it in. It's for Tinsley. She's getting a car, too. She deserves it more than you need yours. My fork froze midair. What? Kendra leaned forward. She starts classes across town next month. I can't keep driving her. And she can't take the bus. It's unsafe. This loan is for her car. Tinsley looked up then, finally. A pink Jeep, she added casually. I already picked it out. It's cute. I sat back in my chair, stunned. It wasn't just a manipulation. It was a replacement. They hadn't invited me here to make peace. They'd invited me here to hand over my credibility to a teenager who still used her mother's Netflix password. I flashed back to when I was 19, working late-night shifts at the diner, my hands raw from bussing tables and scrubbing floors. My dad's cough had been getting worse, and I'd take night classes just to stay on track. No one co-signed for me. No one bought me Jeeps or handed me dreams on a silver spoon. Unbelievable, I muttered. She needs this, Kendra insisted, voice rising. And if you weren't so obsessed with hoarding things— Hoarding? I snapped. You mean saving? Planning? Making decisions without expecting someone else to bail me out? Stop acting like you're better than us, Mom said, her voice sharp now. You've always been that way, quiet, but judgmental. No, I said, looking at her. I was quiet because I thought keeping peace mattered more than telling the truth. I stood, my chair sliding back with a screech. All those years I stayed silent. You called it strength, I said. But maybe it was just fear. Fear of being the next problem instead of the solution. Mom stood too. You'll do it for the family, right? I put down my fork slowly. No, I said. Not this time. Tinsley rolled her eyes. Whatever. You're just bitter 'cause mine'll be newer. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I walked out into the sunlight, the scent of overcooked bacon and cheap perfume clinging to my skin like shame. In that moment, the cherry-red car in my driveway meant more than just 4 wheels and a key. It meant drawing a line no one thought I'd ever draw. I didn't answer her. I just picked up my keys, grabbed the empty fruit bowl, and walked out without looking back. I could feel their eyes on my back, but not a single word followed me out the door. By the time I pulled into my own driveway, the sun was leaning low over the rooftops. I sat in the driver's seat for a while, engine off, window halfway down. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and honeysuckle, but it did nothing to clear the heaviness sitting on my chest. I kept thinking about the way Mom said it. Not a question, not a plea, just expectation. That was always her way. You didn't agree. You obeyed. Inside the house, I kicked off my sandals and headed straight to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of sweet tea and leaned against the counter. The silence was louder than usual. My phone buzzed once. Aunt Eloise. I let it go to voicemail. Something wasn't right. I felt it in my stomach before my brain caught up. It wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't say, like they'd already decided the answer before I showed up. I walked to the mailbox, barefoot, letting the gravel jab at my soles just to feel something sharper than betrayal. There, tucked between bills and junk mail, was a white envelope with a logo I didn't recognize. I nearly tossed it aside, but something made me stop. Back inside, I sat at the dining table and opened it. Congratulations, it read in bold blue letters. We're thrilled to welcome you as co-signer on your new purchase. My heart stalled. A 2019 used Lexus. Amount, $28,700. Term, 72 months. Underneath was my name, my address, my social. Everything correct, except one thing. I never signed anything. I stared at the page, blinked, then flipped to the second sheet. Digital confirmation date. 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was working double shifts, covering for a manager on vacation. I hadn't touched a dealership or financing office. I hadn't clicked any "I agree." My fingers went cold. I checked the contact number listed. I didn't dial it yet. I needed a second to breathe. Instead, I picked up my phone and called Aunt Eloise. She answered on the second ring. Hey, baby. Hey. You got a minute? For you? Always. I walked toward the window, voice low. Something's off. They asked me to co-sign, I said no. But today I got a letter saying I already had. There was a long pause. Do you think they could have used something old? Something I signed before? I heard her exhale. You remember when your sister needed that payday loan a few years back? You filled out a form to help check her options. Maybe that info's still floating out there. But I never approved this, I said. Never saw this paperwork. Sweetheart. Her voice softened. You know how your mama is, and Kendra's not far behind. A weight settled in my gut. I thanked her and hung up. My thoughts pulled backward, yanking me through time like a sudden undertow. I was 17 again, sitting at our old Formica kitchen table with my daddy, who had more love than sense, telling me, "It's just paperwork, baby. You got clean credit, just temporary." He needed help applying for financial aid. He said I'd be fine. This is how families support each other. That time, it was him. Now, it was them. Same playbook, different names. I took a deep breath and stood, walked down the hall, opened the cabinet where I kept important documents. I pulled out my file folder, the one labeled Personal, Do Not Touch, and flipped through until I found the signature sheet from the loan form they gave me at brunch yesterday. Side by side, the signatures weren't identical, but they were close. Too close. And the timestamp? The dealership used a digital e-sign system. It only needed access to a name, birth date, social, and a browser. They didn't need my permission. Just my information. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took out my phone and started taking pictures. Every page, every mismatch, every little clue they left behind like fingerprints at a crime scene. I was shaking, but not from fear, from clarity. They didn't just take a signature. They took my trust, and they assumed I'd be too quiet, too polite, too family first to fight back. Wrong. I dialed the number on the paperwork, heart pounding, not to cancel it, but to request a full report of who initiated the process. The woman on the line greeted me kindly. "Can I get your name, ma'am?" I gave it. Spelled it. She typed. A pause. "Looks like the original inquiry came from a Tinsley McNeil. Does that name sound familiar?" I closed my eyes. Familiar wasn't the word. The line went dead after the woman confirmed the name. I sat there, phone still in hand, for a full minute before setting it down on the counter. My pulse thumped behind my ears, steady but strong, like it was trying to keep me tethered to something real. Tinsley. Of course. The pieces had been there all along, just scattered under years of excuses, second chances, and that's just how family is. I opened the drawer near the fridge and pulled out my old receipt binder. Notebooks, tax returns, even an envelope labeled, "Kendra, do not trash." I flipped through every document she'd ever shoved at me with a too bright smile and a, "Sis, just sign this real quick." Halfway through, I found a scanned copy of our lease from 2016. I remembered that one. She was crashing with me just for a couple months after her last breakup. I paid most of the rent. She offered to split the internet bill and never did. Her signature on that lease looked almost identical to the one on the Lexus contract. That night, I barely slept. Monday morning rolled in heavy and gray. Clouds sat low like they were eavesdropping on the neighborhood. I was halfway through a cup of coffee when a message popped up on my phone. "Kendra, can we talk? Just us. Like sisters. Diner at 1?" I didn't respond. I just grabbed my keys and left the house around 12:40. Didn't bother changing out of my jeans or touching up my face. I didn't want to look put together. I wanted to look real. The diner sat right off Old Shepherd Drive, wedged between a nail salon and an insurance office. Same red booths, same stale coffee smell. We used to come here after school when Mom couldn't pick us up on time. Back then, the jukebox worked. Kendra was already there, booth by the window. She waved when she saw me, all smiles and sugar. "Hey, sis," she said, sliding a menu toward me. "You look tired." "I'm fine." She tilted her head, trying that fake concern thing she does when she's about to shift blame. "I just thought, maybe things got a little tense yesterday. Figured we should clear the air." A waitress came by. I ordered black coffee. Kendra got a slice of pecan pie she wouldn't touch. "Look," she started, "about that whole car thing. It's just a misunderstanding. I thought I had your go-ahead. Mom said you'd probably say yes. You just needed time. You forged my signature. I said calmly. She flinched. Not big, but enough to show she hadn't expected me to come in loaded. I didn't. Look, maybe Mom got confused. Maybe someone filled something out thinking you were okay with it. I don't know how it all happened, but it's not that deep. I leaned back. I got a call. They said the request came from Tinsley. Now her face hardened. That's not your concern, she said, voice lower. I raised an eyebrow. It became my concern when you put my name on a legal document. She smiled tightly. You're really gonna drag this out? Over a car? It's not about the car. It's about the lie. She looked around the diner. Only 2 other tables had people, an older couple sharing fries and a man in work boots reading the sports page. Kendra leaned forward, tone colder now. You need to stop digging into this. You don't want to blow up the family over a car. We've all done favors for each other. This wasn't a favor. This was theft. Her expression didn't waver. Be smart, because if you try to make this legal, it'll get messy. For you. I stared at her, letting the words settle like dust on a countertop no one bothered to clean. You're threatening me? She shrugged. I'm saying you should think about what matters. Mom's not young. Her nerves can't take another family fallout. And you, Shanice? You've worked hard to get where you are. Be ashamed to start over for something petty. The waitress came by, refilled my coffee, and walked off with a polite nod. I didn't respond right away. I sipped. Let the heat burn just enough to keep me still. You always think silence means surrender, I finally said. But sometimes it just means I'm calculating. Kendra pushed the pie around her plate with a fork. Just don't make this harder than it needs to be, she said. I came here to give you a chance to make it easy. I stood, laid a $5 bill on the table. You didn't come here for peace. You came here for control. She didn't argue. She just watched me walk away like she always did, waiting to see if I'd flinch first. But I didn't flinch. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell in the parking lot. I didn't call anyone crying. I just got into my car, pulled out of the lot, and drove home in silence. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the clouds were starting to break. Light filtered through, weak but trying. Inside, I headed to the glove compartment and pulled out the old receipt binder again. This time, I wasn't looking for answers. I was looking for ammunition. Because next time she tried to use my name, I'd already be 3 steps ahead. By the time I got home, the light outside had turned soft and dusky, casting long shadows through the blinds. I toed off my shoes, dropped my purse on the hallway table, and went straight to the bedroom without turning on a single light. I needed the quiet, just stillness. Not even the hum of the refrigerator. I sat on the edge of my bed and let my phone rest in my lap. It vibrated once. Junk mail. Not her. I stared at the last message I sent. I know what you did. The 3 dots never appeared. I thought sending it would give me some kind of relief. Closure, maybe. But it just made the silence louder. I leaned back against the pillows, staring up at the ceiling like it might give me answers. My chest was tight in that familiar way, the way it always got when I felt like I was 5 steps behind, cleaning up after someone else's storm. I'd always assumed I could outlast their selfishness, that if I just kept being dependable, they'd realize I mattered too. I was wrong. I got up and dug through the old receipts and binders I kept under the bed. Somewhere between the car note and the favor Kendra asked of me back in 2018, I found 2 electric bills in my name from an apartment I never lived in. I blinked at them. They looked official, so ordinary, the kind of thing that could ruin your credit without ever ringing an alarm. I gripped the edge of the dresser to steady myself. Then I sat back down and typed out another text. This time, I'm not letting it go. Again. Nothing. No red receipt. No little gray dots. Just that hollow quiet that sinks in when someone's been caught and chooses not to explain. That, somehow, felt worse. It reminded me of a day when I was 16. I had just come back from school, exhausted, and I paused in the hallway because I heard my name. My mom was talking to Aunt Eloise on the porch. "She's the easiest," she said, laughing like it was harmless. "Shanice never pushes back. You could ask her for anything, and she'd say yes. Bless her heart." I stood in that hallway for a long time. I never brought it up. I just swallowed it like everything else. And here I was, decades later, still living out that same story, still being used like I didn't know better. The tears came fast, hotter than I expected. But I didn't make a sound. It wasn't the kind of crying that demanded comfort. It was quiet, the kind that comes from years of holding things in, of letting yourself be small for the sake of peace. I curled forward on the bed and wept into my knees. When the worst of it passed, I stood and opened the jewelry box on my dresser. The seashell necklace lay there, dull and cracked, just as it had been for 26 years. My dad gave it to me the day I got my first paycheck from the diner. He smiled, tucked the shell into my palm, and said, "You don't owe anyone your silence, even if they raised you." I held that little thing in my hand for a long time. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A neighbor's porch light flicked on. Life kept going, but something in me didn't. I wiped my cheeks, got up, and grabbed a pen from my nightstand. I pulled out a fresh notepad and wrote at the top in bold letters, "Everything they used me for." And I started the list. First, the apartment in Oakwood I never even visited, but my name was on the lease. Second, the cable account Kendra opened using my social security number in 2015 said it was just temporary. Third, the student loan application Darlene had me fill out for Tinsley because she needed help with her FAFSA and you're so good at paperwork. Fourth, the doctor's bill from 2 years ago I paid because Mom said she'd pay me back as soon as her social security cleared. Each line made me feel like I was laying bricks, building something, a foundation. Maybe not for justice, but for clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't covering for them. I wasn't smoothing it over or blaming myself, I was documenting. I paused for a moment, glanced back at my phone. Still no reply from Kendra. That told me more than any excuse ever could, and the list helped me sleep that night, if not soundly, then at least with direction. I had a plan now, something to hold on to. And come Thursday morning, I walked into work with a quiet sense of purpose. My folder of documents stayed tucked in my bag, but it felt like armor. I had printed every page of my credit report. I'd started forwarding suspicious emails to a private account. I wasn't just collecting anymore. I was building a case. I've worked at Fairway Accounting for over a decade, long enough that I can clock the shift in a room before a word is said. And that morning, I felt it the second I stepped into the break room. The air didn't move right. Folks who usually greeted me with "Hey girl" and warm smiles suddenly gave me polite nods and busy hands. No eye contact. Not even from Jerome, who once called me his office auntie. I poured my coffee anyway, let it settle in my hand like a prop while I scanned the room. 10 minutes later, Mr. LaGrange tapped my shoulder. "Mind stepping into my office for a minute?" His voice was gentle, too gentle. I followed him down the hallway, past the copy room, the framed Employee of the Month photos, the plant I always watered on Fridays. My pulse thumped in my ears. He gestured for me to sit, then closed the door. "Shanice," he started, clearing his throat, "there's something I need to bring to your attention." He gave a tight smile, the kind you paste on when you're about to say something you don't want to. "Someone submitted an anonymous concern," he continued. "A suggestion, really, about your personal financial conduct. That there might be some irregularities." I blinked at him. "Irregularities?" I repeated. "In what sense?" He didn't answer, just shrugged a little, like his hands were tied. "Of course, I trust you. We all do. But I'm obligated to say, keep things clean, especially right now. We've got clients watching closely." I opened my mouth, then closed it. My hands were folded in my lap so tightly they'd gone cold. He wouldn't tell me who sent it, wouldn't show me what it said, just left me there with the burden of defending myself against whispers I hadn't even heard yet. When I walked back to my desk, the silence was heavier than ever. That night, I opened my laptop and added a new section to the Google Doc I'd started. Smear attempts, timeline. I listed the conversation with Lagrange, the odd stares, the shift in tone. I didn't know who exactly had reached out to him, but I had a strong suspicion who'd planted the seed. By Sunday, I was already bracing for something worse. But I still went to church. I told myself maybe I needed the comfort of the hymns, the smell of old wood pews, the familiar cadence of Sister Colleen's voice, but I didn't even make it past the vestibule. Colleen saw me and paused mid-step. She smiled, thinly. No hug. No. How's your mama? Then came the whispers. Money changes people. I heard she conned her own sister. Sad. Someone else said, just loud enough. She always acted like she was better. I stood there in the sanctuary, feeling eyes crawl over me like judgment etched in stone. A woman I didn't know glanced at my shoes, my one pair of leather heels, and then at my face. The message was clear. I walked out before the first song began. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a long while, staring out the windshield. The wipers moved once, brushing off a few stray leaves blown by the wind. My hands were clenched around the steering wheel. My mother used to say, "We don't air dirty laundry, it's family business." But this wasn't family business anymore. They'd dragged me into the mud and then acted like I deserved it. That night, I went back to my desk. I didn't cry this time. I opened a new document and typed, in bold, everything they did. I filled in names, dates, emails, phone logs, the forged cosigns, the leases, every lie, every manipulation. I wasn't writing for closure anymore. I was writing for proof, not to convince them. They already knew what they did. I was preparing to show the world. Because if they thought they could bury me in shame, they'd underestimated the one thing I still had. My truth. They tried to bury me with shame, but all they did was hand me the shovel, and I dug. All week, I kept at it, digging through emails, pulling bank statements, printing old files I never thought I'd need. Every document was like a brick in the wall I was building between me and their nonsense. I wasn't angry in the way I used to be, not lashing out, not shouting. I was steady, cold in a way I hadn't been before. So when Tinsley's birthday invite hit my phone on Friday, sent by text, not even from her directly but from Kendra, I almost ignored it. Almost. But I read it twice. The words were sweet on the surface. Tinsley would love to see you, backyard BBQ, just family. But I knew exactly what it was. They were setting the stage. I could picture it already. Some fake smiles, overcooked ribs, and Kendra's voice sailing over the yard like she hadn't just tried to tear down my life behind closed doors. I almost didn't go. But then I remembered something my dad once told me after a particularly nasty fight with Mom when I was 16. I was crying, saying it wasn't fair how she twisted everything I did. He'd held my face in his hands, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "Don't run from the lie, baby. Walk straight through it holding the truth." So I put on a blue sundress, grabbed my folder, and walked straight through it. Tinsley's backyard was full when I arrived. Laughing cousins, grilled corn, lawn chairs half sinking into the grass. She'd decorated with string lights and balloons, which fluttered gently in the breeze. The sky was clear, too clear for the kind of storm I felt coming. Kendra spotted me first. Her smile was too bright, her tone too syrupy. "Well, look who finally decided to show up. We weren't sure if you'd come or if you were still, busy checking bank records." The way she said it drew a few snickers from the picnic table. I just nodded. "Nice day." She leaned in with a fake hug and whispered, "Try to act normal, okay?" That was the moment I knew. I wasn't here to defend myself. I was here to end this. The party rolled on, casual and forced all at once. Kids ran around with juice boxes, an aunt passed out slices of pound cake, and Darlene sat near the patio, sunglasses perched like a crown. She didn't even wave when I arrived, but later, as I walked past her to get some water, she murmured, "Some of us just have trouble letting go of things." I paused, then turned to her. "Some of us do," I replied, "and some of us hold on to facts." Her mouth twitched, but she didn't answer. Later, as folks settled into the shaded part of the yard, Kendra stood up and clinked her plastic cup. "Y'all know Tinsley's birthday is a special one," she said, beaming. "So let's toast to her, for being the real rock of this family. Always generous, always loyal." I watched Tinsley glance around, fishing for compliments. She looked my way and added, "And we're grateful to have the whole family here, even when times are complicated." That was the cue. Kendra picked up the baton with a laugh. "You know," she said, loud enough for half the yard to hear, "when Shanice's car got smashed up, I joked that maybe she should have just bought something less flashy, right?" The fake chuckles rolled in. "She might have saved herself the heartbreak and the deductible." That one earned a laugh from Uncle Reggie, who clearly didn't know what he was laughing at. I let them finish. I took a breath, and then I stood up. "I brought a few things," I said, my voice steady. "Some of you might want to see them." That quieted them faster than a thunderclap. I reached into my tote and pulled out the folder. The first page I handed to Kendra. A notarized document showing a car loan from 2018 with my signature forged on it. She blinked, tried to keep smiling. Her fingers tightened on the paper. I didn't say anything yet," I interrupted calmly. Then I handed another sheet to Tinsley. It was a joint checking account opened under both our names, one I never touched, but that had been used to funnel nearly $12,000 over 4 years. The withdrawals, all hers. She looked down. Her mouth opened, then shut again. I didn't rush her. "I've spent the past week gathering paperwork," I continued. "Credit files, leases, emails, things that never made sense until now." No one was laughing anymore. "I'm not here to fight," I said, my voice even. "I'm just here to make it clear. I know what's been happening. I know who used my name, who spent my credit, who cashed in on my silence." Then I turned to face them both. "You know what hurts most?" I asked, quieter now. "Not the lies. The fact that you thought I was too blind to ever see through them. Silence. The kind you only hear when the truth lands like a stone in still water." I sat back down, picked up my lemonade, took a sip. Nobody said a word. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like I needed to explain myself or beg for dignity. I had it, I claimed it, right there between the grill smoke and folding chairs. Let them deal with their own guilt now. They'd spent years talking over me. Now I watched them choke on their own silence. I walked away from the crowd, slow and steady, holding on to my cup like it was some sort of shield. A few cousins peeled off from the folding chairs and followed me to the side yard near the old shed. They didn't say much, just lingered like they were waiting for a reason to either console me or pretend none of it had happened. "They always said I was the quiet one," I said to nobody in particular. "But quiet doesn't mean blind, and it sure as hell doesn't mean weak." I stepped behind the shed, where the shade gave me a little privacy. My hand slipped into my pocket and found the small blue ceramic leaf I'd carried for years. Dad had given it to me on my 18th birthday. It had a tiny chip on the edge now, but I still carried it when I needed strength. His words came back to me like a whisper. "You're stronger than you let on." Before I could collect my breath, Kendra came stomping around the corner. "You done embarrassing yourself?" she snapped, arms crossed so tightly across her chest I could see her knuckles whitening. I didn't flinch. "No, but I'm almost done pretending." She moved closer, her voice sharp. "You're ruining the family, Shanice. This is why nobody wants to deal with you. You always take everything and twist it into drama." I looked at her carefully. That's funny. You said that exact same thing 2 months ago, at Mimi's brunch, to Tinsley, when you thought I wasn't listening. Her face twitched. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, calm as ever. You know, it's amazing what phones can do these days, especially when you leave one recording under a napkin. I opened my files. The first clip was already queued up. I tapped play. Kendra's voice, bright and unfiltered, came through clear. Yeah, I used her credit. Who cares? She'll never find out. Girl's still too busy trying to be perfect. She lunged at my phone. I stepped back and locked the screen. Don't, I said. Don't try to silence me again. I swiped to the next recording. This one from the brunch just days after my car was destroyed. Darlene's voice, low and smug. She's too soft to fight back. That's why we use her. Even Kendra froze. I looked her in the eye. You've spent years talking about me like I'm nothing. You lied, manipulated, even risked my job, and you thought I'd just swallow it. Again. She didn't have a comeback this time. I walked past her, back toward the patio. Most of the family had gone quiet. Some were trying too hard to make small talk. Others just stared. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand anyone's attention. I just pulled up the group chat we all shared, family BBQ thread, and uploaded the 2 clips. As the little progress bar slid across the screen slowly, like the tension in the air. Then I turned and faced the group. I'm not here to argue anymore, I said clearly. I just want you all to hear the truth, in your own voices. A second later, the buzzing began. Phones lit up. Screens were tapped. And then, silence. Aunt Charlene covered her mouth. Cousin Marcus mouthed, "Oh my God." Darlene stood, startled. This is taken out of context. No, I said calmly. This is the context you created. Her hand hovered in the air, unsure of whether to reach for me or defend herself. You were right about one thing, Mom, I added, still clutching the blue ceramic leaf in my palm. I was soft, but soft doesn't mean stupid. And today I stopped being both. I looked across the backyard, at the faces that had once smiled in my direction while whispering behind my back. The power had shifted. Not because I shouted, not because I fought dirty, but because I stopped staying quiet. Tinsley wouldn't meet my gaze. Kendra stood like a statue. Darlene looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under her. And I felt lighter. Dad was right. I was stronger than I let on. And just like that, the power shifted. Not because I screamed, but because I stopped staying silent. 3 mornings later, the air in my apartment was still. The kind of stillness that only follows a storm. Windows open, soft jazz humming from my Bluetooth speaker, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floor like warm syrup. I was watering my peace lilies, letting the quiet settle into my bones. My hands moved slowly, methodically, like each pour into the soil was rinsing away years of heaviness. Then my phone buzzed. I wiped my hand on a kitchen towel and picked it up. Can I come up? Mom? I stared at the screen. Not a call, just a message. No punctuation, no emojis, none of her usual passive-aggressive smiley faces. Just a question I wasn't sure I had an answer for. I stood there, unsure for a second. Then I typed, "Doors open." A few minutes later, I heard the elevator ding. Her knock came soft. I opened the door and saw Darlene standing there in her beige cardigan, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Hey," she said, not moving to hug me, just standing. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. She walked in slowly, taking everything in. The apartment wasn't fancy, but it was mine, filled with thrift store furniture I'd refinished myself, books I actually read, and the scent of lavender oil I kept by the windowsill. Darlene looked around but didn't sit. "I didn't come to fix anything," she started. Her voice cracked just slightly. "I know I broke it." I leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded. I didn't speak. She cleared her throat. I watched that video 10 times. Every time I thought, there's got to be a way to explain this. But there's nothing to explain. You heard what you heard. I nodded, slowly. I didn't need an apology, Mom. I just needed to stop being treated like I didn't matter. Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. I tried calling Tinsley, Marcus, even Eloise. Nobody picked up, not one person. They saw it too, I said softly. Maybe they finally listened. She looked around the room again. Her eyes landed on the blue ceramic leaf that sat on a small shelf near my bedroom door. You still kept that? I didn't move. Because it reminded me of the version of you that used to see me before everything got complicated. She blinked. I forgot who you were. Or maybe I never let myself know. I didn't answer. I wasn't here to relive every disappointment. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet pouch. I didn't know if I should give this to you, but I found it when I was cleaning out that old drawer in the hall. I took the pouch and opened it. Inside was a faded photo, me as a baby, swaddled in a pink blanket, in her arms. Her younger face smiled at the camera, eyes soft and proud. I was proud of you once, she said. I just forgot how to show it. I placed the photo gently on the counter. I don't hate you, I said. But I need time. She nodded slowly. I hope someday you'll let me earn back your trust. I didn't promise anything. She stepped toward the door. Before she left, she paused and looked back. You always were stronger than I gave you credit for. The door clicked softly behind her. I walked back to my plants, jazz still humming through the air. The sunlight had shifted across the floor now, casting long shadows across the rug. I sat down on the couch, the photo still in my hand. They thought I'd cry, but I didn't. I built something better with those broken pieces. And now, they finally see it wasn't weakness. It was restraint. It was strength. Not every ending ties up with a bow. But sometimes, silence is the loudest justice of all. If you've ever been the quiet one, the one who kept peace while losing pieces of yourself, tell me your story. I read every one,